In this week's episode of the Weathering Parenthood podcast, I sit down with Alyssa Tucker. Alyssa is the founder of Live from Snack Time, and she's a mom to Twiblings. We talk about what Live from Snack Time is and how it came to be, but more importantly, we discuss her infertility journey and how she has two children born 6 weeks apart, one that she carried and one that was born via surrogate. Alyssa, thanks for being here with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to speak with you. When I heard your story, my first thought was, yes, we have to talk to her. Before we get into some of the nitty gritty, give us just a little background on you. You are coming to us via Zoom, so obviously you're not here in Florida. Where do you live? How many kids do you have? How old are they?
Sure. I live in New York City. My kids I have two toddlers. They're 2.5, and they are 6 weeks apart.
And that's a really interesting age. I think people are going to think you have two 2.5-year-olds, but they're 6 weeks apart. They are Twiblings, right? Is that the proper term?
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about how they came to be. You struggled, I believe, with infertility. And then you carried one and a surrogate carried the other, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let's start with your infertility struggle and kind of take us back to when that began for you.
Sure. So my husband and I, we've been married for 7 years. We always knew we wanted kids, but it wasn't really till the pandemic where we're like, it's time for kids. He works in live music. I'm a teacher in New York City, so our schedules were always so opposite. So we never really felt like we wanted kids, but we never felt like we could fit. There was no time for kids.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, when the world shut down, Brad had no concerts, no festivals, obviously. He wasn't really producing much. And I was Zoom teaching, and we were like, wow, we really would love to have kids running around this apartment. So that's really when the journey started.
And how long did your journey continue before you realized maybe there's something wrong and we need a little help?
So I would get pregnant pretty frequently. It was like every other month.
Wow.
I would get pregnant, and I would lose the pregnancy pretty early. They call that a chemical pregnancy. This was before a heartbeat. This was really before any of the scans and things like that. But my hormones would rise. We would get a good number. And then the pregnancy would end pretty shortly after that. So after about 4 early miscarriages, or chemical pregnancies, they call them, my OB was like, this is kind of out of my realm now, because we've tried, a few things. I'm helping you, understand when you're ovulating, things like that, but there must be some sort of underlying issue now. And she referred me to a fertility specialist.
So then how long did you see the fertility specialist for, I guess, before you ended up having your children?
Yeah, that's a good question. So usually a OBGYN will see you for about a year. They'll tell you that, it's, for some people, it's a little bit harder, depending on your age and your health and things like that. And they'll usually stick with you for about a year. And then they'll say, okay, something is possibly wrong. So I worked with my fertility specialist, I think, for about 3 years. And through that, I worked with other specialists. I tried many protocols with her. We did IUI, which I can talk a little bit about that if you feel like the listeners
of
would
course.
be interested.
Yeah.
Okay. So IUI is really when a doctor will take the sperm. I guess they kind of like wash the sperm and they take like the best swimmers, the strongest swimmers, and they put it inside of you, like at the doctor's office, with the right timing and things like that. So that did not really work for us, because at first they thought maybe this is a timing issue, or maybe this is a sperm issue. So that was a good opportunity to test the sperm, to really be precise with the timing of ovulation and things like that. That wasn't the issue. fertility specialists tend to do that before they jump to IVF. It's not very invasive at all. It's almost, I mean, you're using your natural cycle, things like that.
It's like a turkey baster.
Exactly. Um, and then we moved to IVF. You first have to harvest eggs. And this takes around 2 weeks. You take injections. You take injections every day, and then you take something called a trigger shot, and it kind of triggers all of your eggs to release, and then you go in for an egg retrieval. They put you under. It's a very short procedure, and they take out all the eggs that you've made that cycle. So we did this a few times. We got a lot of healthy eggs. We were able to then make embryos out of those eggs, which was great. I felt really lucky about that because that's not the case for a lot of people. Every journey is so different. So we were able to make healthy embryos. At that point, we had them genetically tested. Another reason why people might be having early miscarriages could be because the embryos have some sort of genetic abnormality. So they like to rule that out also. Many of our embryos were healthy. They also checked to make sure my husband and I weren't carriers of the same, a specific gene that could be affecting the fertility. And none of that was the issue. We got a lot of healthy embryos. My body really was just rejecting the embryos.
How many transfers did you guys do before you were successful and before you sort of went into the route of surrogacy?
So we had three embryo transfers, like typical embryo transfers, where we try a few different protocols, which none of those worked. And then we tried another embryo transfer where we transferred two embryos, thinking maybe by changing the environment of my uterus, my body would potentially keep it. And my body would just reject. I think we ended up losing 6 embryos on my body.
Wow.
And working with another doctor also, who was trying a lot of different and some untraditional medications and a lot of steroids, and I was getting these infusions called IVIGs, and we were basically trying everything at that point. I was going to a fertility chiropractor, an infertility acupuncturist, I really was trying all different types of treatment. After the third or fourth embryo transfer, my fertility specialist, who I love so much, Dr. Melinek at Cornell, she said, I want us to try something called parallel pathing.
And what is that?
So parallel pathing is trying with a surrogate, and I'm not sure she had confidence in my body at all, but I think she kind of knew that I wasn't ready to give up. So she said, why don't we try parallel pathing? So we'll go down the surrogacy process, but we can also keep trying on you. You have a fair number of embryos. And at that point, you have to think about the number of embryos you have, the number of kids you want to have. You have to make a lot of big decisions, which not a lot of people talk about.
And I'm sure not a lot of other parents have to do if you don't have to go the route of IVF or, dealing with an infertility journey.
For sure.
So what was that like for you guys, having to make some of those decisions? And what were, I guess with how many kids you have, it's how many embryos do you want to risk losing? Is that kind of like what it was that you had to deal with?
Yeah, we had to think about how many more embryos were we going to try on me, even though we weren't doing typical, IVF. We actually ended up stopping IVF on me. I got pregnant with my son naturally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my husband kind of was like, I think your body needs a break. I think you need a break with the medications. You're obviously not responding well to embryo transfers. This is just not happening. So we actually saved the rest of our embryos for a surrogate.
How many did you end up saving?
So 4, 5, 6. We had 6 more.
You had a lot of embryos.
I had a lot of embryos. We were lucky. I had really strong insurance
Mhm.
that
That's great.
covered up to 3 embryo transfers.
Wow. Okay.
So we were like, we're gonna try to do another. We don't know what our future, at
Hmm.
that point, we didn't know what our future looked like. And we were like, we're gonna do, let's do another egg retrieval while we have it covered under insurance. And let's try to get as many embryos as we can while we're at this age and while we're at this stage.
So
And yeah, then it was time to look for a surrogate.
Thunderstorms that are hanging out mostly off the
As a
coastline
meteorologist,
this
I
morning,
can't always
along with
control the
rain
weather.
today.
And as parents, we can't always control our kids, but we can make sure our outfits aren't a total disaster. That's why I'm excited to partner with Mario Pucci, South Florida's destination for timeless, stylish clothing that fits every chapter of life. They can get you out of the leggings and out of the house. Whether you're headed into the office, out to dinner, or to the carpool pickup line, Mario Pucci has you covered. Plus, when you look great, parenting somehow feels easier. Visit Mario Pucci in Regency Park, Boca Raton today.
So before we go into looking for a surrogate, looking back on all of this, what were kind of some of, if you're okay with sharing it, some of the emotions, and I'm sure this was incredibly stressful, and maybe you had other friends that were getting pregnant. Like emotionally, how were you and your husband able to kind of deal with this together?
So he was very positive for 95% of the journey, and I was really falling apart,
Yeah.
which was really helpful in the end, but that can also be really invalidating.
Yeah.
For someone just to be constantly positive, like this is going to work out, it's going to be good, we're going to have kids, it's going to, and I'm like, do you understand the nature of what's going on right now? Like it felt a little bit like at points I felt like I was, just kind of misunderstood or unheard or but looking back, I am so thankful because I have really connected with a lot of women that are either now going through infertility or have. And it was the opposite, where their husband was, or their partner was just really having a hard time. And I cannot imagine having to be there for him, like picking up the pieces for him while also going through it. So I have to say that it was a blessing that he was toxically positive, even though it was hard sometimes.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Like you want someone to argue with too. You want someone to kind of like,
Yeah.
you cry with you. I understand. Yeah. I can understand how that would be. I mean, we didn't experience that, but I can understand how that would be sometimes a little like, it's hard for you. You want to make sure that they're sort of on the
Yeah.
same page and understanding it as well.
Yeah, for sure. But he was doing the right thing for us, even though it didn't feel like that at the time at sometimes.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But it was really helpful because of course I was so angry with myself and my body, and I was so devastated, and I was so devastated at what I was doing to us. So the fact that he was staying so strong was really, really helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
While you were going through IVF, did you have people maybe making comments or not saying the right thing, or, you get married and then everyone says, when are you having kids? And, sometimes that's an okay question to ask someone, but if you're struggling with infertility or having to go through IVF and things like that, that can be a triggering question. Did you guys experience anything like that from friends or families or even a stranger?
Yeah, for sure. We did. And especially people who don't totally understand the process. They think that IVF is like the secret sauce, like you'll be good. So that was frustrating. And and in the beginning we were very vulnerable, and we were very, open about what was going on and the things that we were doing to try to overcome this. But you get to a point where there's just bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news. You don't really want to share anymore, and you're trying to protect yourself, and you don't want to talk about it, which is helpful, but then you also feel so alone. So it's like this double-edged sword.
Did you know anybody else that was going through IVF at the time? I know you said you know people now, but when you were going through all of this, did you guys have like a Did you have any friends to talk to or bounce any of your feelings off of or anything?
So a lot of my friends at the time were either getting pregnant easily or just not interested in all in having babies. My best friend, I think it was towards the end of the process, or maybe towards it must have been towards the beginning, obviously, because her son's a little bit older. And we were going through it together, and then it was working out for her.
I'm sure that was hard for you guys at times too.
Yeah. I found myself most upset. I found myself really finding happiness for the people that I know and love and I know like are working as hard as I was or working hard to, achieve that goal. It was mostly the people that I was upset with and like jealous of and resentful of, like the people that were accidentally getting pregnant and
Yeah.
being like, well, we're married, so we're gonna keep it, or just these people that seem like so unappreciative, or like, oh, a baby, great, we're gonna have to change our whole lifestyle, or like things are about to get so expensive, this sucks.
Right.
It was like that is really what angered me. It was like, you don't know how lucky you are.
That's a very good point. And for people listening who, maybe they don't necessarily know someone who went through IVF, but for people who do, you want to make sure that you understand like the weight of what's happening. Like you're going through something that some people wish was as easy for them, but unfortunately it's something that's a little bit more, work for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into the surrogacy route now. So your doctor recommended the parallel pathing, but your husband had said, so let's just take a break. So I assume you took a break while in the process of looking for a surrogate.
Yeah, so we took a break with IVF, but we were still trying. I was staying on all my oral medications because I felt like those were a little bit more tolerable in my body. So I was on one injection, which was a blood thinner. It wasn't hormone related.
Okay.
They thought maybe when you have all of these early miscarriages, the doctors consider maybe a blood clotting issue. So they often put you on blood thinners.
Okay.
Another consideration was that I had high level killer cells, which means just like an overactive immune system.
Okay.
So it's possible my body was sensing Brad's DNA, my husband's DNA, and really fighting that and not letting it grow.
Okay. So you were staying on those medications.
Yeah. So I was staying on high level prednisone, which is a steroid to kind of calm down or freeze the immune system. I was staying on the blood thinners. We were tracking my cycle. After doing a lot of research, we kept hearing that it takes 9 to 12 months to even be matched with a surrogate. And then for her to be pregnant for 9 to 10 months, it seemed like a long ways away. So I didn't want to just stop trying.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
How did you start the process of looking for a surrogate? Like, was that through your doctor, or did you guys do that like on your own?
So I got a lot of information from my doctor, and she connected me with some other women that were in my shoes.
Okay.
Which was helpful. And through them, I learned to join a lot of these Facebook groups, these infertility Facebook groups. They call us intended parents. If you are hiring a surrogate, you're called an intended parent. So an intended parent Facebook groups, surrogacy friendly Facebook groups, surrogates in the Northeast. I joined a lot of different Facebook groups just to kind of gather information. And through those, I would learn about the different laws in each state, and I would learn the prices in each state, and I would learn the safest way to find a surrogate, which we learned is really, you got to go through an agency.
Is that what you guys did?
Yes. But the agency told us it was a 9 to 12 month wait. So I ended up finding our surrogate on Facebook.
Wow. Can I ask how?
Yes. So our surrogate, who we love so much, she's always going to be like a huge part of our lives, but I'll get to that later. She was asking such interesting questions in one of the Facebook groups, and she just really stood out. She really seemed fascinated with the process and like wanting to do it for the right reasons, and really wanted to help a couple who was struggling. I mean, you hear some horror stories, and you also, not all surrogates do it for the right reasons, or they're receiving, government assistance, or they don't live in a safe area, or, all of these surrogates deserve to be paid. They're doing an incredible job, and it's really hard. But there needs to be another sense of why they're doing it. That's what I was looking for. Someone who truly had the empathy and the understanding and the means to take this seriously and do this the right way.
That's amazing. Where does your surrogate live? Was she in New York?
No. So she lives in Connecticut. Okay. She's also a teacher. So we connected right away. She in a lot of these Facebook groups, you're really not supposed to DM privately. I actually didn't know that, but afterwards she was like, Alyssa, you're not supposed to DM me. I'm like, but I'm happy I did. Because some of the Facebook groups are just informational, and some are, just to learn about agencies or just to learn about surrogacy lawyers and things like that. She happened to catch my eye. She seemed very educated and just, like I said, just doing it for the right reasons. So yeah. I couldn't help but reach out to her.
I love that. When did you guys, I guess how long after you guys began speaking did you start the process of implanting your embryos into her?
So we had both been interested in the same agency. So we went to our agency and we really let them, start the process, the paperwork, things like that. So it was pretty quick. Well, it was like 3 months after our first conversation. I think it was around 3 months. We started the process. That's because it takes a long time. I mean, she needed a medical clearance. We need to find a lawyer for us, find a lawyer for her and her husband. You need to really understand and track her cycle and make sure she had tests done to make sure that we are transferring the embryo at the right time, things like that. So it's not like you meet and you start. It's very time consuming.
It's a process.
But it's very tedious.
But it must have been faster than if you just went separately through the agency. Because you said it would take like 9 to 12 months before you could even be matched with someone.
Totally. It was so much faster. And we saved on a matching fee, which is huge.
That's nice that the agency was like, sure, you two found each other and we'll just be sort of like the middle ground person for that. That's nice that they did that.
Which is really helpful safety-wise, but also for payment-wise and for emotional needs. There were things that, were worrying her or that she had questions about that shouldn't go directly to me. And same with me, that there were things that happened during the pregnancy. We all know that, pregnancy are not just like a straightforward kind of thing. There were things there are hiccups along the way, big hiccups, small hiccups. And to have the agency, if you have a good agency, that was really helpful.
Yeah, that's great that you guys had that. So who got pregnant first? Was it her or you?
So our surrogate, we transferred an embryo into our surrogate, and the first embryo failed.
I'm sorry.
So at that point, I probably was at my absolute lowest.
Yeah.
Because at this point, and I always will, believe in science, and I'm so thankful for science, but I'm like, the doctors are telling me these are healthy embryos. And now I'm a healthy person. They can't figure out what's wrong with me. And now we're transferring it to a proven uterus, and my embryos are still failing. It really made no sense to me. And
did they give any kind of reason as to why it happened, or it was just a miscarriage kind of a thing?
So the statistics are, and our surrogate is a math teacher, so she said this to me over and over, it only works 50% of the time. Even on a proven perfect uterus with X number of, perfect hormones, the perfect size lining, like uterine lining, everything, it only works 50% of the time. Every baby truly is a miracle, as corny as that sounds.
You're right. 100%. So she miscarried, and you try again the next month. Did you have to wait a few cycles? I assume there was more waiting for that.
So the embryo was transferred. She got a positive pregnancy test. Her hormones weren't rising. So they call this a chemical pregnancy. I don't know. It's a very early miscarriage, so some doctors might not even call it a miscarriage. We were able to just wait. I'm pretty sure we were able just to wait till the next cycle. But at that point, I was even more on top of tracking my own cycle. We wanted all horses in the race. I really did not have a lot of confidence in my body, but I was like,
You're still trying.
yeah, I mean, until we know that there's a healthy baby coming, we were pretty determined. So we tried the next month and all was looking great. She got a positive pregnancy test. Her hormones were rising and tripling and quadrupling. And it was pretty clear her body was responding well. And 9 days later, on Halloween, 2022,
Okay.
my husband and I think we were going to go out for Halloween. And I was like, I want to take one more test before we go out, before we like flush all these pills and throw away these injections and just fully focus on our surrogate. And it was positive.
Thunderstorms that are hanging out mostly off the
As a
coast
meteorologist,
this
I
morning.
can't always control the weather. And as parents, we can't always control our kids, but we can make sure our outfits aren't a total disaster. That's why I'm excited to partner with Mario Pucci, South Florida's destination for timeless, stylish clothing that fits every chapter of life. They can get you out of the leggings and out of the house. Whether you're headed into the office, out to dinner, or to the carpool pickup line, Mario Pucci has you covered. Plus, when you look great, parenting somehow feels easier. Visit Mario Pucci in Regency Park, Boca Raton today.
So then you get a positive test. What was that like? How did you guys feel?
So it was exciting for a few seconds. But we had lost so many pregnancies before that we didn't really discuss it with anyone. Even my mom and my sister, who I'm so close with, and my mother-in-law I'm super close with. We didn't really share it because we had lost so many pregnancies early on.
So
we were still pretty focused on the surrogate.
at what point how far along in the pregnancy did you get to before you were like, this is, I guess it would be maybe beyond 4 to 6 weeks when you were kind of like, wait, this one's sticking?
Yeah, so I had to get an exam every week because I was such a high risk infertility patient.
Okay.
So every week we would see him growing, and every week we were getting such positive news. Once we hit the second trimester, that was the furthest that I had ever gone. So I let myself, I think, be a little excited and a little happy, but I wasn't at all gearing up for 2 kids.
Yeah, I mean, based on your history, I can understand like why you would be hesitant to kind of feel excited just because you've experienced, so many miscarriages previously.
Yeah, it was really difficult to feel excited. It would come and then it would just dissipate.
How did you feel like physically, like physical wise, when in your first trimester? Like, were you sick a lot? Did you have lots of energy? Did you have like pregnancy symptoms?
I was pretty nauseous, and then when I wasn't nauseous, I was extremely anxious because I was thinking that it was over.
When did your nausea end?
Pretty early into the second trimester, my nausea ended. However, that's when my blood pressure started to spike. So I was feeling pretty sick for other reasons. And I spent the last 30 days of my pregnancy in the hospital. And I had my son very early. So there actually, unfortunately, but who cares at this point, there wasn't really a moment to really kind of enjoy it and take it in.
Right.
It was like this very anxious state, this very nervous state. I was waiting for the second shoe to drop, the whole time. And then I was checked into the hospital, for the rest of it.
So you were carrying your son.
Yes.
Your surrogate was carrying your daughter, right? You have one of each.
Yeah.
So did you find out like around 12, 13 weeks the genders of each of them, or was it like wait till the end?
So with your embryos, because they're genetically tested, we were pretty aware of the genders.
Got it. Okay. So you knew she was going to have a girl.
Yeah, because that's one of the genetic results, the
Right.
gender.
Yeah.
So we knew we had a lot of girl embryos, and we had lost like the only two boy embryos early on. So I actually was mourning the loss of ever having a son.
Aw.
My husband is one of three boys. He has like a million boy cousins, only boys in sight. Like I had always pictured myself as a boy mom, and I was like, this is so cool. I'm going to be a boy mom. Um, and and then we had lost our boy embryos. So to get pregnant naturally with a boy is another layer of like craziness.
Yeah. This is a very wild story. So thank you again for sharing this with us.
Sure.
So who was born first?
So great question. So we went to all of our surrogates appointments, every single one. I feel like we had to miss like maybe one. And then I got checked into the hospital, so we couldn't do that. So our surrogate was supposed to give birth first, but I had my son very early.
How early was he?
So he was 6 weeks early. My blood pressure was just too high to control.
Yeah.
So I had to have a C-section. It just became dangerous for both of us. And so I had a C-section, and he was in the NICU. And then 6 weeks later, my daughter was born.
I assume you were there.
Yes. Yes. So my son was in the NICU for 2 weeks. He was fine. He was just tiny, and they wanted him to gain weight consistently before we brought him home. And we were not sure. So my daughter was 10 days late. So gestationally, they were supposed to be 9 days apart.
Okay.
Let's not forget that detail. But my son was 6 weeks early, and our daughter was 10 days late. So yeah, so my son was in the NICU for 2 weeks. We weren't sure if we were gonna like have to ask the hospital staff if we could keep him there so we could go get our daughter. Even though he was ready to come home, but we were
Right.
like, okay, we have another baby on the way. Don't ask. Like, but our families really jumped in, and it actually worked out. And the silver lining to this all was that I was able to breastfeed my daughter after she was born via surrogate.
That's
Because I
amazing.
had just been feeding our son for 6 weeks.
That's awesome.
And that was the most magical moment of it all, like unexplainable. I can't even explain it because like my body had failed me for so long, and it was like finally doing something right.
Yeah.
And I was able to, and she like latched very quickly, and I was able to feed her, and it was just like an out of body experience.
That's amazing. I'm like tearing up listening to you say that. I'm sure it was also very hard for you. Like, it must have been hard to have someone else carrying your child. And
Yeah.
so, like, to be able to then, like, you know, you don't need to breastfeed to bond, but I'm sure it was like, you were able to kind of feel that bond with her because someone else was growing her for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. I was sad in the beginning thinking like I would never experience pregnancy, and then I did. And then I was worried about bonding with my daughter after not carrying her. But I realized quickly like that's all a myth. Like a baby bonds with whoever gives them love.
Yeah.
And my husband and I were looking at her like, you look like us. Like
Yeah.
you're fully genetically ours. Like, why did we think for a second that this would ever be like difficult?
Yeah.
And I think it helped that our surrogate too was she was hyper focused on us being the parents and making the decisions. And like, even though she signed, a pretty lengthy contract, it really like her body, her choice when it came to like the nitty-gritty decision making. In certain states, like I would have to adopt my daughter after 72 hours.
Wow.
Even though it was my embryo, she
Yeah.
was like the birthing person. In Connecticut, it happens to be a very surrogacy friendly state. We were actually able to have a legal document that said, as soon as our daughter takes the first breaths, I am the mother, Brad is the father. But even if that weren't the case, our surrogate, like they would ask her questions about like the birthing process. And she's like, I am not the parent. Like the parents are over there. I have nothing actually to do with that. So she was just like very hyper aware with her language and her decisions and just her communication and everything. So that was helpful.
That's wonderful. I know you have to go soon, but I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. What was your sort of thought process of you and your husband now realizing, I know you were very anxious the whole time and you wanted to like wait until your son was in your arms for you to probably feel comforted. But in the back of your mind, I'm sure you're also both like, we're about to have 2 babies. What was that thought like? Like we were having trouble conceiving 1 and now we're about to have 2. And also like, oh my God, there's going to be like, now we're going to be parents to twins and it's going to be, of course, like extra exhausting, extra hard. What were some of those thoughts that you guys were thinking during that time?
We were definitely, we were nervous, but it was just, we just have a different kind of appreciation. When you go through all of the trauma and the long journey, you just have a different appreciation for like the small stuff. Like, oh, we're gonna be super tired.
Right.
Oh, we're gonna have 2 newborns. Okay. You know, we're fortunate enough to have our families really close by. Especially my in-laws, they live very close by. So like we knew we didn't have to do it on our own. So that was helpful. And my body did not respond well to pregnancy. So I was also happy that like, well, we probably don't ever have to do this again.
That's fair.
So, and it was a boy and a girl, and there was there was too much happiness to be scared.
Yeah, understandably so. And now I'm just going to like, we're taking a 180. Where did Live from Snack Time come from? Because it's hilarious and adorable. And I want to know, like, quick elevator pitch, how this got started.
Sure. So I am a teacher in New York City, like I mentioned. Live from Snack Time is a brand that started in my classroom. My kids were just saying such thoughtful, curious, hilarious comments. And I was like, this needs to be shared immediately. Like, this is gold.
It's so funny.
Thank you. And through that process, I started working. We brought on my a close college friend. His name is Greg, who's awesome, who's still on the team. And he kind of helped create what it is now. It started as a Twitter account. And then he's like, this needs to move to Instagram. He's a digital creator.
Yeah.
So then we started getting submissions from all over the world. And after some press, we realized like, oh, this is like really something. And we were getting such great feedback that it was just so relatable. And it wasn't parents that were following us. Like it was teachers, it was caregivers, it was teenagers. The feedback that we get is that it's just so relatable. Like we all have kids in our life in some capacity, or you think about when you were a kid. And yeah, we get submissions from literally all over the world. And we try to just post like the most relatable and the most heartwarming content. And I think people just continue to come to us for humor.
That's really sweet. Did it start before you had your kids, or was it after?
Yes.
Okay.
So the account is 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
It's been through a lot of phases and changes.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it's hilarious and I love it.
Thank you.
Say that one more time.
I said thank you so much.
Yeah, it's like very cute and very funny. I like to end each episode with everyone sharing their high and their low from their week in parenting. I call it a sun and a storm because it's quote unquote weathering parenthood. So your high is like your kid said something cute, and your low is, they broke a glass or whatever it might be. I'm going to share mine first and then I'll let you share yours. And then I know you have to go. My high for the week, my husband and I got to sleep out. Sorry, my kids slept out. So my husband and I got to sleep past like the sun coming up this week. Or one morning over the weekend, which was like amazing and like the nicest thing ever. I guess the storm would be just like my youngest he's 15 months now. So he's just like in everything. And like I found boxes of mac and cheese in his room earlier this week because he just like pulls things out of cabinets that I probably need to lock better. And just like there's stuff all over the place because he just likes to like move it all over the house. And it's just like a mess everywhere. It's a fun storm, but that's what it is.
It's a fun storm. Mine is a little bit unique because my sister got married this weekend,
Congratulations.
days ago. So my kids were in the wedding and it was just such a crazy magical experience because obviously what we went through and how close I am with my sister and she's 7 years younger. So I feel like I've had this picture in my mind of like my kids being in her wedding and like even as a young kid, I thought about this and it was like it happened. So to see my daughter as the flower girl and my son as the ring bearer and my sister as a bride, I'm just like still on a high from it.
That's amazing.
But with that, the storm is like recovering from a weekend like that and still having to be a parent.
Yep.
And today was picture day and I like am still really lacking sleep and and my husband's traveling for work. So I was like, not only am I still hungover and tired, I have to get 2 toddlers ready for picture day by myself, fed and ready for school.
It's tough.
So,
it's tough.
yeah.
Well, I hope you guys had a fun weekend. Congratulations to your sister.
Thank you.
And congratulations to you. And thank you again so much for sharing your story. This is like an unbelievable tale to listen to. And I hope someone that's, out there and maybe struggling or starting their conception journey, finds inspiration from you or just, enjoys listening to what you have to say. And certainly what the kids that are all over the country have to say with your Live from Snack Time account.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, specifically the surrogacy process was really hard to learn and navigate. And so I'm always open. It's really important. It feels important to share. And I'm always checking the Live from Snack Time DMs or my Live from Snack Time email. And if I can just help one person, it's all worth it. So please, if you know anyone struggling, send them this video.
I will.
Tell them to DM me.
I will. And I'm going to put I'll put your Snack Time email and the Snack Time Instagram in the show notes so that if anybody is listening and wants to connect with you, they're able to.
Thank you. It was really nice chatting with you.
It was nice to chat with you too. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week.